What's up? And today I'm gonna be watching Zach D films and why shouldn't he deserve the hate and all that.
The skin above to stretch and grow. This creates
And today's first
She paid a
and
small
our
balloon
today's first video is this.
placed under the scalp near the hairline. And over the next few weeks, doctors slowly fill it with liquid, causing the skin above to stretch and grow. This creates a visible bulge as the skin expands. Now, once there's enough extra skin, a second surgery removes the balloon, leaving a flap of stretched skin. The hair-covered scalp is then pulled down and carefully stitched in place. And over time, you'll have a shorter forehead with more hair.
Whoa. Some guy said KSI be taking notes. KSI has been real quiet since this video uploaded. The fact that the skin can stretch and grow more over time is both terrifying and brilliant. Nature is engineering wild. Oh, nature's engineering is wild. Wow. Big respect to everyone who actually went through this procedure. KSI needs this, of course. Is nobody gonna talk about the how realistic this looks? Man, shut up. KSI and K. Look, everyone's commenting the same. See? These animations and models. Yeah, I'm not gonna read them all. There are literally 2,000 comments. But however, the thing that caught my eye is KSI taking notes.
She paid him $7,000 to break into her house and kill her husband. And when she got home, she found police taping off the crime scene. She put on a show, screaming and pretending to be shocked. But she was secretly excited to get her dead husband's money. When the police questioned her, she gave a list of suspects. But that's when her husband walked into the room, alive. She couldn't believe it. You see, the hitman she hired was actually an undercover cop. So she spent the next 16 years paying for her crime. She paid him
We actually must be talking about this one. This guy again. The plot twist was crazy. Bro. I mean, like, I know this thing. She paid him money to just break into the house. Yeah, I know this thing. Literally. I watched it in a YouTube movie.
$1,000 to break in. If you pee into this special chamber filled with tiny microbes, they would begin to feast on the nutrients in your urine. This would release incredibly small particles called electrons. Then these electrons flow through a circuit and are captured as electricity. And if you have around 5,000 gallons of pee, you can generate 1,200 watts, which is enough energy to cook a full batch of pizza rolls in an air fryer. If you pee into this...
What the hell? I'm never using electricity for anything. I'm never ever using electricity for everything. As a matter of fact, I'm using electricity. What the hell?
If you were taped in a big cardboard box and shipped at the post office, could you be delivered across the world? Well, you would have to weigh less than 150 pounds in order to be accepted. And this doesn't include the week's worth of food and water you'll need to bring along. You would need to make air holes quickly, but wait until you're already in transit so nobody notices. If you don't bring a container for your poop and pee, it could give you away to workers. And if you do get caught, you could go to jail because this is actually illegal. If you were taped in a
Hell yeah.
big cardboard box and she tried to climb onto her balcony after locking herself out. But as she stepped onto the lid to the building's garbage chute, it gave way. She plummeted 30 feet straight down before hitting the bottom of the chute. For over an hour, she was trapped with severe injuries to her head and back. Rescuers finally pulled her, and somehow she was still conscious. She flipped off TV cameras as she was lifted.
Oh wow. flipped off.
Each barrel would fire at
I also like how did he write Zach D Films on the ambulance.
cameras as
See?
she was lifted to
Look
the
right there.
ambulance.
See? I also like how he wrote thingy. His name. To make it better, I'm gonna use this thing. Yeah, this is so hard. Yeah, but you see it. Zach D Films, which is this guy's name. I think bro should stop it, lad.
Each barrel would fire at once if there was a prison riot approaching. You see, these barrels were packed with gunpowder and a single bullet. And when the trigger was pulled, sparks dropped into the chamber, igniting each one. The moment it fired, it would spray bullets in multiple directions. And in a crowded hallway, this would hit several inmates at once, putting an end to the prisoner uprising. Each barrel would fire at once.
I don't really think they use it in modern jails now. But I'm gonna have to, I don't know, search it up or something later. And I'll tell you.
If there was When they opened the ancient tomb, they found treasures hidden for thousands of years. But later, a man who entered the tomb ended up dying from an infected bug bite. And another man who was there was found dead after being smothered in his bed. Then someone else connected to the discovery was shot by his wife, killing him instantly. In total, 8 people present when the tomb was opened died in strange ways in the years that followed. Panic spread among the explorers as they wondered who was next. When they opened the ancient tomb, they found treasures hidden for thousands of years. But later, a man stabbed the shark and pressed the button in the knife's handle.
About this, I forgot I was recording, actually. About this, definitely. Like, it's a freaking mystery, but yeah, it's literally in the morning, so I don't know what I'm talking.
Stabbed the shark and pressed the button in the knife's handle. This triggers a CO2 canister hidden inside, causing it to burst. As it does, it shoots compressed gas through a tube in the blade before coming out of the tip. This freezing gas is injected into the wound and expands violently, destroying the tissue around it. The shockwave is enough to explode the shark from the inside.
Oh, wow. At least get the knife, bruh. Oh, wow. And by the way, this is shorts. But actually, wow. Congratulations. You have summoned every other shark within 20-mile radius to your location. Wow. The worst part is about exploding them. Sharks are actually pretty harmless if you don't alert them. One shark is easy, but how about a Sharknado? Wow, shut up. Instructions unclear. There are many sharks on me. Oh wow. If the knife does not work, you have just pissed off a huge shark. Wow.
Killing it before it can kill you.
But bro, at least get the knife.
They tie a small rope around the baby's leg, tight enough that it can't break free. Now, the elephant pulls and tugs for days, but the rope holds tight. Eventually, the baby gives up. But once the elephant is fully grown, they still tie it up. And even though it's now strong enough to snap the rope with ease, it doesn't. It stands there, bound up like it was when it was young. You see, it still believes that the rope is stronger than him, meaning what's holding it back isn't the rope, it's just the belief that breaking free is impossible.
I did not understand this. I didn't understand. I repeat, I did not understand this. What does he mean by his belief? I mean, I could be tweaking, but what does he mean by his belief? I mean, like, I didn't even understand this.
Tie a small rope. The bullet spins fast as it's shot out of the barrel, and if it hits a frozen lake, the hard, icy surface stops it almost immediately. But the impact creates heat, melting a tiny, thin layer of water beneath the bullet. This makes the ice super slippery, with almost no friction. And if it lands upright, that spin helps it stay balanced. So instead of tipping over, the bullet can actually stand up. The bullet spins fast as it
At the end, look how the guy, the soldier, he's good. He's like confused. People before shut up. Zach has too much love for his bullets. Wow. If anybody is wondering, it spins because it's had a nice day and it's really happy. Man, shut up. This makes ice super slippery. As if it wasn't before. Oh, it kinda spin. Steel ball run! It's hard. Gyro Zeppeli. Boy, I'm German. Not German, sorry. Syrian German. No. I believe I'm Syrian German because I know German a lot. The bullet is a professional ice skater. You could say that bullet is pretty bizarre. You know what? I'm just gonna say bizarre. Don't judge while my reading. I'm just tweaking. Gyro's a shut up! Why is everyone saying Gyro's a Zapelli, whatever? Beyblade? No. This guy. Jojo. Man, this guy reminds me of my friend Jojo. He hasn't been online for 2 years. Gyro Zapelli. Man, shut up. Guys, tell me in the comments, what does Gyro Zapelli mean? Also, at the same time, what's a Beyblade? Someone called Gyro Shut up. I'm done reading.
She cried tears of blood when she woke up from surgery. You see, she was supposed to have work done on the left eye, but the doctor had operated on the wrong one. Realizing the mistake, he pulled out a needle and injected it into the correct eye. Then he grabbed a pair of scissors, and without gloves or proper tools, he started cutting. She screamed for him to stop, but he ignored her. And when it was over, she was left with permanent damage to both eyes. She cried tears. She painted one canvas a day, and each one sold for thousands online. One day, an investor approached her. He asked her why she only did one painting a day. She told him she liked to paint.
Oh, and this doctor should be 12 years is not enough. Shut up. Oh. Okay. Well, the doctor should be absolutely sued as the doctor should be sued in the court of law as her doctor actually did not wait, what? I'm tweaking. As she filled in the paperworks, but the doctor was dumb enough to perform on the wrong guy.
She painted one.
If I was the doctor, I would be like, for real.
Canvas a day, and each one sold for thousands online. One day, an investor approached her.
And then look at the end how the doctor just reacts. Bro should be executed, not jailed, not fined, not sued. Bro should be executed.
If you She
Where was
painted
I?
one canvas a day, and each one sold for thousands online. One day, an investor approached her. He asked her why she only did one painting a day. She told him she liked to paint casually in the morning and spend the rest of her day gardening and taking care of her cats. He ran the numbers, showed her what she could earn if she painted 5 a day. That was more than she needed. She asked what she would do with all that money. He told her she could hire assistants, scale the whole thing, 10 paintings a day, maybe more. He showed her an even larger number. Again, she asked what she would do with all that money. Then he showed her the real plan: a studio, a team of artists, a system that produced 100 paintings a day. She would be rich. He could see it clearly. A thriving business, maximum profit. She asked what she would do if she was rich. He explained it to her carefully. With that kind of wealth, she could do anything. She could casually paint when she wanted to. She could garden in the afternoons, spend time with her cats, whatever.
That's kind of peaceful life, though. Me personally, I would just sit on my couch and call bodyguards, just whatever.
She wants. She agreed that sounded like a beautiful life, and he finally realized that she was already living it.
Not gonna lie, making a painting every day is still a lot of work. Oh well, yes. Where was I? Oh, sorry, I was listening to Freebird. Where was I? No, where was I? Oh, I was there. Okay, so this time
If
I
you
was there.
swabbed the inside of your
Ew.
belly button and placed it into warm milk, the microbes inside the gunk would start breaking the milk down, which would turn it into cheese. Now, if hundreds of people donated their body bacteria for this, there would be enough to stock an entire deli case with this gunky cheese. But you
I'm never eating cheese again.
probably wouldn't want to eat it because it'll smell exactly like the person it came from. If you
You know what? Actually, I will eat cheese. Oh, so gross.
If you wake up in a morgue freezer, the low temperatures will kill you in just a few hours. To escape, feel around the door for a latch to open it from the inside. If it doesn't have one, look for any equipment that was left in there with you. Wedge it between the door and the frame to try and pry the door open. If this doesn't work, kick hard against the refrigeration vent in the ceiling. Once it breaks through, it will stop the fan from cooling the freezer, keeping you warm.
Why using, because it's so tight that your bro's toes curved up when he hit the fan. Yeah.
People cry when they
The bird dips its beak into the water, and the fuzzy fabric on its head gets wet. As the water evaporates, it cools the top bulb, which causes the gas inside to shrink. This lowers the pressure in the head, while the bottom bulb, warmed by air, keeps higher pressure. And this pushes a liquid up through a tube toward the head. As the liquid rises, the weight shifts, and the bird tips forward. The head dunks again, re-wetting the fabric, continuing the cycle until the water is gone. The bird dips its poop dropped on the assassin as he waited.
Oh,
The bird dips
and
its beak into the water, and the fuzzy
this guy needs to make it clear here.
your ear poop dropped on the assassin
I like that thing.
as he waited
I just hate poop.
beneath the toilet, ready to attack. He had climbed up the toilet chute, which emptied outside the castle walls, unnoticed by any guards. And he waited silently
The fact that this
until
guy
the Duke
stayed alive
sat
for a
down to
day.
relieve himself. At that moment, the assassin lunged his spear straight into the Duke's butt. It tore into his body, causing massive internal injuries, and he slowly bled for days before finally dying. Poop dropped on the assassin as he waited. Your ears would look like this if you lived to be 200 years old. Stretched, drooping, and noticeably large. And this is because your ears never stop growing. They expand ever so slightly every year. The cartilage inside weakens over time, and gravity slows.
You know, I hate long ears.
slowly pulls them downward, elongating their shape. And the same thing happens to your nose. It grows longer, its tip droops, and the nostrils
Okay, I want a big nose, but I don't want a big ear.
widen, giving it a distinctly aged, exaggerated appearance. Your ears would look like this if the thieves blow a handful of powder into their victims' faces, causing them to fall into a hypnotic, zombie-like state. They then voluntarily hand over valuables, money, and even PIN codes with little memory of the events afterwards. But some even die. That's because the powder is devil's breath, a dangerous Colombian drug extracted from a flower that can cause seizures, respiratory failure, and heart attack.
Fun fact, do you know that a cigarette contains drugs?
The thieves blow. Steel structures are rammed deep into the seabed as powerful pumps drain it until a patch of ground appears. This hole in the sea lets people easily work in bodies of water, but if it isn't built correctly, the enormous pressure could cave it in, forcing thousands of gallons of water through the walls. Workers are swept away and sometimes buried under tons of sediment. Steel structures are rammed deep into the seabed as powerful pumps. He attached himself to 1,000 helium balloons and lifted off as it began to rain. Now, he was supposed to land in a town over 600 miles away, but the storm picked up and blew him all the way over the ocean. He called the Navy to try to tell them where he was, but he didn't know how to use his GPS. And after weeks of searching, they found only his balloons.
Why the Navy? Why not the Coast Guard? Why the Navy? If this guy is living in Canada, he has the right to call the Navy. But if this guy is living in the US, no, I don't think it matters. A Coast Guard is basically a Coast Guard. No USCG, no Canada Coast Guard, no crap, no stuff. Yeah. It's all like a Coast Guard guards the coast, I believe.
Till his body surfaced 2 months later. He attached himself. When the alarm goes off, it triggers an air compressor hidden under your bed. This releases a high-powered air into pistons attached to the bed frame, causing them to fire. This slams the bed away from the floor and launches you straight into the air. At the same time, trumpets blare loudly and bright lights flash from the headboard, ensuring that
The way how the matches the United States Army thingy, the army thing. I don't know.
there's no way
I'm not American.
you can oversleep. When the alarm goes off, it triggers an air compressor hidden under your bed. This releases a high-powered air into pistons attached to the bed frame, causing them to fire. This slams the bed away from the floor and launches you straight into the air. At the same time, trumpets blare loudly and bright lights flash from the headboard, ensuring there's no way you can oversleep. If you fall into water filled with alligators, you might try to swim back to shore as fast as you can. But the splashing will only attract them. Instead, slowly swim towards the shore without any sudden movements. Now, if one starts swimming towards you, yell loudly and splash water in its face to scare
The way he just loud. The way he just yelled.
off. If it still grabs you, hit it hard in its eyes and nose. These spots are sensitive and will force the alligator to let go, giving you a chance to escape safely. If you fall,
Bro, the way how the blood disappears immediately.
when you pull the trigger, a burst of
Huh? I think I counted
When
it
you
as
pull the
glitch.
trigger, a burst of BBs fire out of the gun, hitting the paper with sharp, clean little holes. Now, to win this carnival game, you must completely shoot out the star. But each BB weakens the paper around it, making it softer and less stable. So instead of punching clean holes, they'll eventually just slip through different sections without it tearing, meaning
Kinda true.
it's actually harder to remove the red star the more you shoot.
The way just bro rages.
Pull the trigger. When you pull the trigger, They rubbed the dead person's hand against their open wound. You see, people thought when criminals died, it gave them special healing powers. So they rubbed their wounds on the corpse's hand, hoping the sickness would transfer into their dead body. And it was especially popular for skin problems and infections. But in reality, the corpse's hand could easily spread bacteria into the wound, making things much worse.
Who said that?
They rubbed the
Actually, who said that? Terrifying. Terrifying. Who actually said that? And guys, in the background, in the corpse, don't mind it.
The cables would be attached directly to the asteroid. Then the skyscraper would be built around the cables, with gravity pulling it towards the Earth. But since the asteroid is moving in orbit, it pulls the cable away from Earth. And this would actually stabilize the skyscraper, allowing it to float thousands of feet above Earth's surface. As the asteroid moved through space, the tower would slowly trace a figure-8 path above the planet. Solar panels on the top would harness energy from constant sunlight, powering the floating tower without ever touching the ground. The cables would be attached directly to the asteroid. Then the skyscraper would be built around the cables, with gravity pulling it towards the Earth. But since the asteroid is moving in orbit, it pulls the cable away from Earth. And this would actually stabilize the sky. The balloon is pushed into your nose and quickly inflated while you hold.
What was this?
The balloon is pushed into your nose and quickly inflated while you hold your breath. This is done if the small bones in your sinuses are out of place. As it expands, it pushes against the bones, causing them to click back into the right position. As they move, the balloon suddenly expands into your throat. Next, it's popped by a toothpick.
Oh my gosh, this is so terrifying.
Allowing you to breathe again. This is done 7 more times, opening every cavity in your nose. And as the bones move, the pressure in your head is relieved, putting an end to your pain.
What happens to the balloon into your mouth?
The balloon is pushed into your nose and quickly
Let me know in the comments.
يا لها من لعبة مخيفة ومثيرة. إنها لعبة.
They drilled the deepest hole ever dug, reaching over 7 miles into the Earth. And after 30 years of digging, they lowered down a microphone and captured this sound. Now, many believed they had drilled into hell itself, and even some said a demon had escaped through the hole. But it turned out the recording had never actually happened. Instead, Christian TV networks cut together sounds from a horror movie and used it to try and prove that hell exists.
I'm Muslim and I know that hell exists.
They sealed him inside with just a little bread and water and mailed the box to Philadelphia.
And it's very, very impossible to, it's very, very impossible to dig to hell.
27 hours, he sat cramped in the tiny space, enduring sweltering heat and rough handling. He even spent 20 miles upside down as the box traveled by boat. But finally, the box arrived over 200 miles from where it started. And when it was pried open, he emerged, finally, a free man. They sealed him inside with just a little bread and water and mailed the box to Philadelphia. For 27 hours, he sat cramped in the tiny space, enduring sweltering heat and rough handling. He even spent 20 miles upside down as the box traveled by boat. But finally, the box arrived over 200 miles from where it started. And when it was pried open, he emerged, finally, a free man.
The latest bro is relieved. And by the way, this is, how many minutes has this been going? 30 minutes! Oh, okay. 30 minutes. Okay, so, my explanation here is why did they...
If over 1 million people, they sealed him inside with just a little bread and sealed. He attached himself to 1,000 helium steel structures are
Why?
They sealed him. If over 1 million people somehow pulled out their stomachs, the acid could fill a pool about this size. And if you jumped in, after a few minutes, you'd feel a horrible burning sensation as your outer layers of skin started to melt away. If you stayed in for hours, they would keep breaking you down layer by layer, eating through your muscles and tissues. And after a few days, your body would literally start falling apart as the acid dissolved it, turning you into a slimy mess. If over 1 million people
What do you mean by a slimy mess?
somehow pulled out their stomachs, the acid could fill a pool about this size. And if you jumped in, after a few minutes, you'd feel. They cut off the flower heads, then stick them right back on the stalk. Now you might think they do this so the head can reattach, allowing them to keep growing. But they actually do this once the seeds inside are almost fully grown. And by placing the head back on the stalk, it stays upright in the sun and off the damp ground, meaning the seeds can keep drying out naturally until they're ready to harvest. They cut off the flower heads, then stick them right back on the stalk. Now you might think they do this so the ring flips open to
Yeah, what about it?
reveal a tiny compartment hidden inside,
Zach D Films, of course.
which was used to hold poison. There was just enough to kill a person, meaning you could slip it into your enemy's food to murder them. But it wasn't just for other people. If a soldier was captured with no way to escape, they'd probably be tortured for their information. To avoid this, they could take the poison themselves, ending their life and taking their secrets with them. The ring flips open to reveal a tiny compartment hidden inside, which was
For the soldiers, though, oh my gosh, man.
8 men rest their heads on a
What is
metal
that?
bar as a sharp moving blade is powered by a crank that the barber turns. Once the machine starts, the blade moves across the row, shaving each man's face in one continuous sweep. Now everyone has to stay perfectly still because the blade doesn't stop or slow down. If one person sneezed as the blade passed, he could end up with cuts or worse. And this is why this device never really
I knew it!
caught on. 8 men rest their heads on a. When a baby is born, they can't really do anything except lay there. When a baby is born, they can't really do anything except lay there and squirm. But other animals can walk and move around right after they're born. So why are human babies so helpless? Well, it's actually because human brains are huge, designed for language and problem solving. And if we stayed in the womb long enough to develop other capabilities like walking, our heads would be too big to come out, resulting in death and the eventual extinction of our species. So instead, humans are born earlier and more helpless. But this is also why we're smarter than every other animal. When a baby
Of course, Danny, this guy is so dumb. It's in the Quran, too.
The man was found floating on top of a killer whale's tank at SeaWorld. Bites and deep scratches covered his body, indicating that the whale had killed him. His parents immediately filed a lawsuit, believing SeaWorld was at fault. But investigators discovered that the man had stayed in the park after hours and snuck into the whale's enclosure. Because he was trespassing, his parents dropped the case, still left wondering what he was doing there to begin with. The dolls had massive eyes, puffed
Massive.
cheeks, and twisted mouths. And even though they were ugly, kids were desperate to have them. Thousands of parents lined up in front of stores, but only a few hundred dolls were ever in stock. When the doors opened, people shoved, punched, and even swung baseball bats just to grab a Cabbage Patch Kid. Some even waited in the freezing cold with catcher's mitts after a radio station joked that they would drop some from a plane. But only the luckiest kids got the dolls they wanted until the craze ended. The dolls had massive eyes, She was born blind and deaf, trapped inside her own head with no way to communicate. So her teacher placed her hand on her throat, then began to speak. The vibrations told her when sound was being made and how strong or soft it was. She moved her fingers to the teacher's lips and nose, feeling how they formed different shapes for each word. Then she practiced those same movements on her own face, over and over again until she was able to speak. She was born. If you shot a bullet at a stack of dollar bills, it would tear right through them with ease. And this is
Isn't that illegal?
because a low-powered rifle fires at around 1,000 feet per second. That's enough to rip through several $100 bills. But as soon as it passes through, the paper fibers slow it down, absorbing its energy. And if you tightly packed thousands of bills together, it could stop a bullet completely, meaning it would only cost you about $4,000 to save your life. If you shot a bullet,
Bro, that's illegal. What did I just watch?
it swallowed a pebble nearly the size of its mouth and started choking. His owner rushed him to a vet, where they slowly added anesthetic to his water, putting him to sleep. Once he stopped swimming, they lifted his mouth above the surface and used forceps to carefully pull the pebble out. The next day, the goldfish woke up fully healed, swimming around his tank. And this entire procedure cost only about $500. It swallowed.
Dang, 500. In Qatar, bro, bro, ow. In Qatar, it's literally free.
A pebble nearly the size of its mouth and
But
started
however,
choking. His owner rushed him.
But however, the governmental hospitals are free. I hate governmental hospitals. They couldn't even heal my asthma. Asthma is like the easiest thing to heal.
To a vet. You could shatter your shoulder and tear your muscles if you tried to break down a door. Instead, face the door and take a step back.
I'm not saying I hate the government. I love the government, but I hate the governmental hospitals. That's what I mean.
To build momentum. Next, kick forward, keeping your leg straight and putting all the power into your heel. Aim for the area just next to the doorknob. As you kick, the energy gets transferred into the lock, which will force it to splinter the door frame around it. This will allow you to break the door instead of your bones.
Good.
It was his first time alone in space, drifting quietly over the Earth.
Why is there the Chinese flag?
Then suddenly, he heard something. It sounded like someone was tapping on the hull of the spacecraft with a wooden hammer, but he was completely alone inside. He looked out the window, seeing nothing. Putting his ear to the wall, he listened carefully. Still, no explanation. You see, it's actually impossible to hear anything in space, since there's no air to carry sound. Astronauts on other missions reported hearing the same sound, and when they tried to replicate it on the inside, nothing matched. Now, some think it was the spacecraft expanding and contracting from temperature. He dropped big rocks into an empty jar, which
Today my back and shoulder are hurting a lot.
represented life's most important things: family, health, and dreams. Next, he poured in a handful of pebbles. They slipped through the gaps, settling around the rocks. But there was still room for them because the important things were already in place. These pebbles were the smaller but still important things, like your job and house. Then he took a scoop of sand and poured it in. The tiny grains filled every crack and crevice. The sand was all the small things, like hobbies, watching TV, and vacation. Now, if the sand had gone in first, there would have been no room for the pebbles. And if the pebbles were first, the rocks wouldn't fit. Meaning, the most important things in your life, the rocks, have to go first. Finally, he poured in a cup of coffee. It seeped through the sand into every last microscopic bit of space, completely filling the jar. Because even when life feels full, there's always room for a cup of coffee. He dropped.
Okay, so this guy says an advice in the end. There's always a room for a cup of coffee. Yeah, this guy.
Big rock. If you put the Titanic next to the Freedom ship, it wouldn't even be 1/7 of the size. Even the world's biggest cruise ship would only reach a fifth of its length. That's because this ship was designed to carry 80,000 people and operate as a floating city. It would have its own apartments, hospitals, and even an airport. And it would take over 100 high-powered engines just to move it. But he twisted a piece of... If you put the Titanic next to the Freedom...
But however... the American hospitals are so cool, and they're smart for you. That's why I go to American hospitals in Qatar, such as the SAC Medical Center.
Ship. It wouldn't even be 1/7 of the size. Even the world's biggest...
Hi.
Ya Allah. He's talking, guys. Hold on. Amir is talking.